And welcome back to day 2 of our coverage from LVO. So today was the finale of
everything.
Of the narrative, and we got our top 8 and our champion. Do we want to talk about the competitive first, or do we want to talk about the narrative?
We can start with the competitive.
All right. There was a top 8, and someone won. No.
Sweet. We did it.
Yeah,
Good job,
we did
everyone.
it. We talked about it. Mark Harriddle won with Deathwatch, and he beat Ben Neal, Space Marines, in the final. The other top 8 was Jack Harpster, Blood Angels, Floof Cox, Gene Stiller Colts, Scary with his Drukari, Josh Roberts, Space Marines, Jay Eggett, Chaos Space Marines, and Derek Apshay, which is also Chaos Space Marines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Marine equivalents, Dark Eldar, and Gene Stealers.
That's a lot of Marine equivalents.
It's a lot of power armor for sure. Mark's list was really good. It was a lot of the things that we talked about when we were looking at the index. Things that were like, oh, that could be very useful. So his list was the Deathwatch Black Spear Task Force. He had Captain and Gravis armor with the heavy bolt rifle. Then he had a Judicar, a Lieutenant with combi weapon, and then a Watchmaster. His battle line was he had 3 units of Deathwatch veterans, 2 5-man units and a 10-man unit, kitted out with the shields and the combat weapons, Thunderhammer, frag cannon, so like all the cool special weapons that you can take in the units. So a couple of small units to do objectives and do things, and then one larger unit to kind of break up and do some things. 2 rhinos, Deathwatch Terminator Squad, which had a bunch of missile launchers and the storm bolters, all the stuff that Terminators get. 2 squads of Terminators kitted out the same. The Indomitor kill team, which is the Gravis armor one. The Heavy Intercessors, the Eradicators, the Melter Rifles, and the Aggressors with the Flamestorm Gauntlets. So, multi-melta, a lot of Flamers, a lot of Power Fists, a lot of Heavy Bolt Rifles. Storm Speeder, Thunderstrike, and then the Talon Strike kill team, which was the Kill Team Sergeant Jump Pack. That's
the jump one.
Yeah, that's the jump one. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of mobility, like a lot of bodies, just a lot of bodies to be able to chew through, and like the ability to kill other Marines, which is what you want, you know.
Well, especially looking at the top 8 being almost all Marines, it seems like Marines are back.
Yeah.
And the best way to deal with them is having Marine killing options.
We were looking at this yesterday. I don't think we talked about it on podcast, but I was looking on like Reddit, and they had listed out the win rates for all the different factions, and Deathwatch was at the top of the win rates. Now, granted, having somebody that makes the top 8 boosts that up, but it was almost like a 60% win rate. 8 players, so it could have been kind of a fluke and boosted definitely by the 1, but yeah, kind of impressive. I was like, wow, that's very good win rate, because it had the same win rate, I believe, as I think Thousand Suns was the other one that had like almost a nearly 60% win rate. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Like if there's what they do in the next balanced data slate to nerf, or if they feel they need to nerf Marines, or like what changes they make to Deathwatch. Because I mean, there's a lot of tools in Deathwatch, which is good. Like it's what they do.
We'll have to see. My thoughts, especially seeing some things at the narrative, is I still want them to patch the whole. I'm a Dark Angels one, but I don't have any Dark Angels characters, so now I can run.
Yes, that's dumb. That was dumb. That's a dumb oversight. They should fix that.
Because I mean, it felt fine when I was playing against Salamanders and they were doing it because they're Codex Space Marine, but the Dark Angels player played. He was doing it too. It's like, but then the Dark Angel player that's playing with me always had a named character, Belial. He ran the line in the final game, and so he was stuck to he couldn't do that, and so it feels like a named character penalty. Yeah,
that's definitely not the intent, which is why I figured I was kind of dismissive when Rob brought it up when we were recording about it, because it's like, well, they're clearly going to FAQ it because it's clearly not meant to be that way, and then they haven't yet, so I'm like, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, well, if you're wrong, then maybe this tells me GW is not interested in selling character models anymore.
The Age of Hero Hammer is dead. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah, good performance from Deathwatch. So I was very, very impressed. I would not have called Deathwatch.
No.
But we were talking to Dave earlier as well because we ran in for dinner. And he's like, no, once I saw they made the top 8, He's like, I was pretty sure they're going to win it because all of the matchups except for one, which he played Scary, which is the one he drew, which was like 63-60. It was a super close game. He's like, no, he's favored in all the other matchups except for Drakari. And then he was able to pull it out. So, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. No, it's very impressive. I would love to see more Deathwatch come of this, because
absolutely,
I've liked them as a faction.
They're a cool faction. About. Yeah, they're a cool faction. And listen, I like them more from like the narrative perspective of like, I can do cool things. I can make, I can kit bash models, make them part of Deathwatch, stuff like that. But also, like, part of it goes back to the fun of playing the old Fantasy Flight Deathwatch role-playing game, where like literally like a team of 4 Space Marines steps on an orc-infested planet and kills everything.
Yeah, you just have to get used to the new names. Yeah,
getting used to the new names was interesting. But I don't know, I like it. Still kind of wish there was a full Phobos one that had like the ones with the auto guns, the jump ones with the auto guns.
Oh, they're not the ones that aren't out yet, really.
I don't
Suppressors.
Know. Suppressors. I was gonna say IMSET. I don't know, because everything starts with an I. Space Marine names, get more original, please. That's still a thing that I see that's lacking so far, and I'm sure that's an easy button to hit next time.
It might be, but I think first they'd have to get those models readily available. Right now they're not.
They're not, yeah.
And I think that's why they're not in the codex.
For sure. That's for sure why. Before we jump into the finale of the narrative, this was day 3 of LVO. What did you think about like the third day? Because Sundays tends to be the more chill day.
That was weird. Yeah, we decided to get up early and go down to breakfast, and we found out, the rooms aren't open yet. Mm-hmm. So we waited for the breakfast place, and then we took our stuff to the rooms, and everything was empty. Even when we walked by the champs area that was packed with 1,000 people yesterday, we had like 50, 60.
That's the thing. Like, we did get it earlier, so that was part of it. But
even when I walked by later when they were playing, it was a lot fewer people there.
So with the way LVO is structured, the 2-day event is basically Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday is just the top 8 for competitive. So if you're in that event, 1,000+ people are not in the top 8.
Right.
So they drop them into a 1-day, 3-round RTT, and they just pair them up like as people show up. It's like, okay, there's 8, here's 8, here's 8, and you just do that. And a lot of people just decide that I'm here in Vegas, I'm gonna have fun Saturday night.
Well,
and then don't go to the Sunday.
When I did my first US Open in Austin, that's what I did. Because there was 3-3-2. So it was only 8 games, not 9.
Yeah.
But after 2 days of 3 games, I was so exhausted that Sunday, and they gave you the option of that, of like, if you want to drop on Sunday, just let us know. And so I let them know, and so like, I took the day off, saw sites in Austin. I got to walk through the Capitol building. It was a lot of fun. And so I don't discourage people from doing that, especially in Vegas.
It's a Vegas vacation. Like, a lot of people, we were coming back from eating dinner last night, and we passed a bunch of people. Dave, one of them was like, oh yeah, we're heading to the Strip to go get dinner now, which meant they probably didn't get dinner for another hour or so, like, getting over there and getting reservations and stuff. So they were back 3-4 hours later than we were, so like, I mean, and, especially in a situation like Dave, where he went, 3-0 for day 1, won his 4th game, and was like on the cusp of the top 8. When you lose, like, that's a lot of like pressure, and it's a lot of like specific playing that you have to do. You may not want to be like, I'm just going to disengage from this and enjoy a relaxing Sunday.
No, I totally get that. But then I did see not just that, but the Sigmar, like we went, the back room, they had their doubles event today.
Yep.
That was cool to see. And even our room, I think when I wandered around, was the busiest of the rooms.
Yes. Yeah.
And which that part did surprise me, because it seemed like we were the only room that had major stuff going on.
Well, I don't know this because I didn't obviously look at the board and I didn't get all the things. Like, it didn't seem like we had many drops in the narrative for the final day.
I don't think we had any.
Yeah.
I think all of the tables were full.
Yeah. So, I mean, which is cool. That's awesome. And that was always kind of the way it was with the friendly too, is the friendly would go Saturday, Sunday. Sunday, the friendly was like kind of busy, but most everybody was already like gone and stuff. So this amazes me, and this is not a way that I can operate. It always amazes me the people that are like, yep, our game is going to go until 5:30. I have a 6:45 flight.
Oh my gosh, no.
No. I cannot travel that way.
And I feel sorry because there's some people in my last game who said, after we wrap up here, we'll get some food, and then we've got an 8-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would not do an 8-hour drive starting at
tonight.
6 p.m.
Yeah, not doing it tonight. It may be if you're switching out drivers, I guess, but even then, no. One of the guys in our game, the Imperial Agents player, he was like, all right, the game's over, cool, I'm gonna pack my stuff. My luggage is here, I'm heading to the airport. And I'm like, okay, I wouldn't be able to live that way. And I travel a lot. That's cutting it too close. That's cutting it too close for me.
I mean, that's fair. The other thing I noticed is, like, I did wander through the shops. There was still a bunch of stuff there, but numbers of people weren't there.
Yeah. In general, like, Sunday is kind of the big, like, the event day. Like, if you're in the top 8, like, everyone has the dreams, like, oh, I'm in the top 8, just like that. But yeah, Sunday's definitely the low-key day. And, you know.
And then the other thing I heard in passing a couple of times, people pointed out the main room. They're like, oh, yeah, that's where all the 40K events are. The other rooms are for the other events. And that got me thinking, wait, we were in a 40K event. We weren't there. So I think that goes to your point of saying that they want to save that big room for here's our big stuff. But maybe that means they still have room to grow in that big room to just push the other, like the friendly and the others off to the other rooms.
Yeah. I mean, because the friendly in the past has been in like a side room like this. When we were at Bally's, the friendly was up on like the top of one of the towers.
Oh, wow.
Like we had basically, so the 40K event championship game was on the convention floor, and then we were like in a tower at the top, like in the penthouse, whatever.
That's kind of cool.
It was kind of neat. It was very cool because it was actually a cool room because you're in the room, you could see out into Vegas and stuff. Like it was actually really cool.
No, that reminds me of some other events I've done where all the main stuff happens one place, but then the side stuff happens another. And then if you're the ones in the side stuff, it just feels really cool because you're like, hey, we're the special guys. Or like when I did the narrative in Dallas a couple of years ago, we were off in another part of the hotel away from the main convention area or where all the competitive was. And it felt like we were in our own little world. And that was perfectly fine. We had less elevator problems. We had less people to dodge.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of would like to see that.
Like I said, it wasn't bad. I don't know that Bally's, again, I don't know how like the penthouse situation here at Bally's is, but there's enough side rooms and stuff. They haven't felt a need to do that yet.
This is me also complaining that the 10 to 20 minute walk is rough.
It is. It can be rough. Day 3, instead of doing team 1,000 point, 2,000 point games, 1,000 points each, we were doing a 4,000 point finale. So you could do either 4 1,000 point armies, 2 2,000 point armies, some mixture of the two, basically just 4,000 points per side. Kenny and I partnered up again. He brought his 1,000 point list, which was the 2 big knights, the one with the laser destructor and the all shooting Gatling cannon, thermal cannon. And then he brought 6 carnivores, 6 war dogs as the rest of the
war dogs, okay.
Yeah, well, carnivores, the melee one.
I guess they are battle line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had 6 of those. That was basically his list. I brought Angron and the Lord of Skulls, and then added in like some other stuff to kind of buff it out. But adding in Angron and the Lord of Skulls basically was 1,000 points or close to it. For my army, the narrative that I'd kind of come up with for this specific event is, because the Angron model that I have is converted out of a Riptide, that the remaining Earth-cast scientists in Farsight enclaves were basically working on like containment vessels for demons. And over the course of the event, they built up enough power to be able to summon Angron in for the final battle, which was my excuse for not using him earlier at 1,000 points because that had just been rude. So we all played the same mission.
Avatar of Woe.
We set up 2 tables because it's 4,000 points, so 2 tables, and it was the short table edge deployments, but into the spearhead point on your table, and you had 24 inches of no man's land in the middle between like the front
36 between the 2 points.
36 between the 2 points, like at the shortest points, and then it was progressively more on the side.
And then it was
and then it was
60
more,
30.
yeah.
So about 60 between the farthest points.
So we
crazy.
played a team that was made up of Phil, Stefan, Zach, and Max. Phil and Stefan had Tau. One was Tau Auxiliary, so it was Kroot and Vespids, like a ton of Vespids. And then Stefan had a bunch of battle suits. So he had one that was all plasma, one that was all melta, and then broadsides and a hammerhead. And like I think 2 commanders that were in each of the squads, the crisis suit squads. Then the Gene Stealer cult player had a bunch of aberrants and the other melee focused one. And they had an upgrade that let them fight first with the character that was on there. So we were kind of avoiding that unit because we were trying to shoot it instead. The narrative hook for all of this was Max, who was playing Imperial Agents. So he had an Inquisitor and a Kit Bash Inquisitorial Agents warband, which was really cool. And then 2 units of Death Watch, and then like some Navigators and a couple Assassins. He had an Eversor Assassin and a Vindicare Assassin in his 1,000 points. The narrative for them on that was that he was requisitioning all of the Xenos forces that he had fought up to that point. And because he actually gave out little purity symbols, so I actually have like a purity seal. It actually, you can read it out like what's written on there. It basically says like, you were, upon receipt of this, you were, if Inquisitor or whatever, comes and calls on you, you were owed your allegiance and stuff like that. So 36 inches of like run space against Tau, 2 Tau armies that shoot is not a good time.
Yeah, no, we'll get that in ours too.
So we didn't go first. They seized on us and went first, or won the roll to go first. They had a turn of shooting at us, and then we had a turn of running, and then they had another turn of shooting at us, and then another turn of running.
Why don't you just deep strike your demon prince?
Well, so I'll get to that in a moment. Well, they actually did a really great job of this. So it's actually like very good strategy on their part because they knew that we had deep strike stuff. So when they set up, they put the 2 Navigators, which have a 12-inch deny bubble, basically 12 inches off the corner. So basically denied this huge bubble and then put enough other stuff kind of along the side so there wasn't great places for us to come in on the various sides either. So they just did a good job of kind of boxing us out and like spacing units properly. So it was like very good positioning on their part. I put Angron in Deep Strike Reserve. If I had put the Demon Prince in Deep Strike Reserve as well, I might have been able to get a spot because we did shoot some other units that opened up a tiny spot, but Angron on like his 120 mil round base, just there wasn't a spot for him to land there and be 9 inches away from everything and 12 from the 2 Navigators. The 8-bound unit and or the Demon Prince might have been able to, but it still would have been tight. They did a really great job of positioning. But yeah, they basically had 3 turns of mostly unadulterated shooting at things. There were a couple of units like this Kroot scouted forward. So I was able to kind of get into melee with them with some of the units with like 8-bound, things like that. But they just shot a lot of stuff. Like my small 8-bound unit died right away. My Mauler Fiend took a broadside railgun to the face, top of one, boom, blew up. The Hammerhead hit one of the knights and peeled some wounds off of it, and then the knight hit it with the thermal cannon and removed it. So it wasn't going well. And like I ended up getting tabled because like my army ended up completely dying. Angron was the last one to die, and he ended up getting shot in the face with the Vindicare. Which is funny because I think it was round 4, the Vindicare shot him with the shield breaker round, which is like the one that would have basically just ignored his armor, but he didn't wound. Because Angron still was tough at 11, so he had to roll like a 3 up, I think, to wound. He rolled a 2, re-rolled it, rolled a 1. Got out of that one. Then he shot him with a regular round, and is basically like, well, it's whatever the save is, but on a 6, it's devastating. So he rolled a 6, and then it was D6 wounds, and he rolled another 6, and I had like 3 left, so I saved like 1 and died. So Angron actually died to like things that are supposed to kill him as opposed to dying to bolt weapons or whatever. If the first shield breaker round had hit him and killed him on 4, on my Blessings of Corn roll for 5, I rolled like 4 6s. So I would have been able to bring him back with full wounds for the last round of the game, which would have just wrecked everything. But it was a super fun game. A lot of my stuff did get shot off the table before it really got into melee, but there was enough that I was able to get in and do some stuff. They kept using their Vespid units to do the uppy-downy thing, because that's just one of their abilities where they can fly back into reserves and deep strike in. So they would fly up, we would try to shoot at them, or try to assault them, they would escape, they would go up, they'd come down, they'd do an action, and then we'd kill that unit. And then the next one would do the same thing. So there was I think there were 2 different war dogs that were basically just on the backfield, like just doing bug cleanup, where I would drop in between them.
That's a funny way
do
to
the
call it.
action, get shot, get the points, unit dies. Next unit drops in the same spot. Like, it was literally just like a bug zapper type thing. Because they did that for like 3 straight rounds. What actually sneakily was very effective is that my cultists were able to tag 2 objectives before they died, and we basically held those the entire game. We thought we were toast. It was actually so funny because, like, we were talking through towards the end the points, and the other side, they were like, they thought we were way ahead. We thought we were way behind, and it turned out we were like 15 points behind. So I was like, okay, but then we were able to control more objectives, and we scored like 20 points on the final round between the objectives and doing the action and killing like another vehicle unit. So we ended up winning like 73 to 68 or something.
So really close.
Yeah, very close game. Yeah, and like I said, it was not guaranteed at all at any point, because I was like, it's not that far, but that 36 inches to cover is a lot. The table had good cover on it, it had good terrain, but still, like, it's just that much shooting, to have a lot of indirect fire, smart missiles, stuff like that. Like, it's just a lot of shots you're getting, so you're having to advance amongst that. But the opponents that we're facing were stalwarts and enlightened, I think. So they had access to all 4 of the stratagems, like all 4 of the enhancements, and we had none because we didn't hold any of the worlds.
Oh my god!
So they used the holy hand grenade, and they used like the uppy downing once, and they on something like, so they were able to use all of them and make benefits. One of the guys had a tied shield wall, which I had never actually seen used.
I know a friend locally that wants to build one and play with one, but
it's not good. But
no,
it was fun.
He knows that.
It was fun, yeah.
The only part is he wants that gun platform that attaches to it.
Oh, the gun rig? Yeah. Because he just had the shield wall.
Right. Because the shield wall is the one you can really find in retail right now.
What was really funny, though, is he was trying to tank shock with it in my Berserkers, because it's a vehicle.
But how much toughness?
5?
That's not worth tank shocking.
Do you know what melee profile it has?
What?
It doesn't. It doesn't have a melee weapon. It does not have a close combat weapon. It gets no attacks.
Right.
So the only thing you can do with it is tank shock.
But that's only 5 dice. My Rhino can tank shock.
And he failed the charge anyway, so he didn't.
Okay.
But that's what he was trying to do. He's like, I'm going to try to tank shock this.
He just wanted to try and do something silly. Okay,
yeah.
I follow now.
If he tank shocks those Berserkers to death, I'm going to be marginally upset.
What? That you got run over by a wall?
That I got run over by a wall. But it was fun. Like I said, I'd never seen one in use. Like, I don't think I'd ever seen one in use. I have a shield wall, but it's only because I wanted to eventually use it for like a display piece. I've never played a game.
But now you know you can tank shock with it.
Which is better, because it used to not be able to tank shock, because if it was, when you used to have to pick a weapon profile to tank shock, so it couldn't do anything. Right. So now it can tank shock at least.
I bet if this becomes a trend, GW will say that.
Yes, there is a trend of Tide Wall.
It's the Tide Wall challenge.
Sure. Yeah, there's an epidemic of those being used for tank shock to great effect. It was a very fun game. All the opponents were great. It was cool to see Imperial agents on the field. And to see the Fortis skill team, as we talked about earlier, Deathwatch are pretty good. There's some good flexibility with weapons in there. So that was our game. How was your game?
Different. Well, first off, as we talked before, it was weird. A lot of people like to team up.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say this. Stalwarts, which was our faction, seemed to be the most organized, because the guy who was like air quote volunteered to lead it, he was leading it. And so like 15 minutes before each round time, he tried to gather everyone together, give a rousing speech, which one of them got posted to Discord, and one of our people actually filmed him doing it and actually added music to it in the whole video editing type thing. So you will have to take a look at it. And it's really good. If he had a costume, you'd think he was one of the NPCs. Nice. So he kind of got us together, and he said, hey, you guys are there, form your teams, stay with Stalwarts if you can, but if you can't, play with whoever you want. And then he made sure people had pairings, and so he paired up a lot of he said, oh, you got two? Oh, you're just doing 2,000 each? Okay, go for it.
Yep.
And he did a great job of leading all of this. And then I said, well, I'm just a 1K. He said, he looked around, he said, well, okay, you care where you go? I'm like, not really. He said, okay, come with us. And then he tried to get another 1K because he was already partnered up with his friend he came with as 2 1Ks.
Yep.
And they said, well, we've already got some opponents set aside because we wanted to play them since last year.
Nice.
So, and they were going to be a 3 or 4 person team. He said there were 3 people they were going to look for 4. So we got over there and then we're playing out that our side would have 1,000, 1,000, 2,000. They said, the other guys said, well, we actually thought this could happen, so we each have a 1333 list.
Oh, heck yeah.
So we're like, okay.
That's specifically why I brought about 2,500 points. Because, hey, I wanted to have some flexibility because I wasn't sure, especially with the Vessels of Wrath, wasn't sure how was that going to work out. But I also was like, I wanted to have the flexibility that in that final game, if I needed to go 2K, I could. If I needed to go 1K, I could. If I needed to build a 2,500 point list because somebody only had 1,500, I could do that, and get to the 4K. So, yeah.
But in the end, before we even got started with that, we had one of the guys running the event come by say, hey, we've got these 2 loners. Do you mind? Because they weren't our factions at all. He said, do you mind if they join? We asked them what they played. One was Iron Warriors and one was Orcs. And our side, which was Votann, Blood Angels, and my sisters, we were like, we want the Iron Warriors.
Heck yeah.
And the other side was Guard, Space Marine, and World Eaters. They said they didn't care. When Iron Warriors guy was already standing on our side of the board and Orcs were on the other side, so we're like,
let's do that.
And I found out the Orcs and the Iron Warriors were kind of teamed up because they also came together.
Yeah.
So now they could play against each other-ish
cool.
in a way.
Very cool.
But yeah, like you said, deployment was crazy.
Yes.
Which, in a way, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. In our game, it kept them in the game because they deployed very well.
Right.
They created good lines of fire. They were able to, deny some opportunities of, okay, we're going to put the hammerhead here, so we don't want to put a knight right here. They were able to spread the backfield and deny deep strike. Very, very good, yeah.
And how we set up the board is we first mapped out the deployment zones, put down the objective markers, and then we placed terrain. And it was I don't want to say assign different people to that, but I did the deployment thing, someone else did the objective markers, and then the 2 kind of lead guys on each side then kind of put the trains where they wanted, so we had a balanced field. And that made a big difference because firing lanes were tough.
Yeah.
And because ours was a pretty heavy terrain thing, which I'm thankful for, because I was on one of the flanks. So I had a long way to go to get there, and if I'd had 1 or 2 rounds of shooting my stuff wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
But here's what I did enjoy about it, because how every time, most games, everyone will be clustered at the front of the deployment zone, or normally the back of the deployment zone, and then you're kind of just all scrunched together. The way this played out, it was a huge space, but turn 1 ended up just being positioning.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of, these tanks are going to move here, or we got to make sure here, make sure you're hiding behind something. I think we shot a couple guns, maybe, and the other opponent shot 3 guns. It was not much shooting on turn 1 because either things were out of range or out of line of sight.
Yeah.
And then our team, part of our strategy was exactly what your opponents did. Our Iron Warriors guy, he put guys down, put them 9 inches away from each other, had the whole debate. I put my squad of 5 Repentia in the back to kind of help out, saying, here, I'm helping. And because he knew his friend, who was playing the Orcs, had some dragstas that when they move can just go anywhere they want.
Yeah.
And so if those were in our back line, it would hurt. And also, as you said, if they're in your deployment zone, they can do the action for 4 extra points.
Yes.
And I thought you had to survive, but then I read later, it's oh, no, it ends on your turn. I'm like, oh.
That's why those Vespids were able to, do it, 3 turns in a row.
Yeah.
Even though that 5-man squad immediately died.
Well, that was one strategy we had that then I messed up on, is I was going to drop in the Demiurge and her elven friend in their back line because I have Lone Up. On turn 2, the tanks were still back there. So even with my Lone Op, on the bottom of the turn, the tank could then come over, drive in, and just obliterate them. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I don't want to yet. We'll do it next turn. Because I thought we wouldn't get the points.
No.
Yeah. Had I done it, I would have got the points.
Yeah.
But then we would have had to drop more things down in their backfield, which we had plenty.
Yeah.
The Blood Angels had a lot he could drop.
Sure.
The Iron Warriors had some Terminators. We had plenty.
You had things to do, but yeah.
But I was playing it a little too safe. As it also went on turn 2, let me go back a minute. When we were trying to figure out who was attacking and defending, we did the thing of each person rolls a dice and add the totals together.
Oh, okay, that's good. We just picked one person on our side.
I'm enjoying the whole team thing.
That's good.
If you have the same number on each side, that is.
We didn't.
Right, that's why.
But we're like, okay, you roll for who goes, attacker, defender, and we'll roll for, I'll roll for who goes first.
But here's the thing. 4 people on each side rolling. So you got 4d6. 5 times we came up with the same number.
That's crazy.
It was hilarious.
That's amazing.
Then when we did the attacker defender, we got it in 1. It was not even close. I finally got to go first.
Nice.
It was great.
It would have been nice to go first.
I know. But also because of how far away everything was, I didn't use a blessing until turn 3.
Wow.
So I'm also thankful that the detachment was changed to saying I don't have to pick one.
Sure.
Because if it said I had to, then I would
have burned a couple of
I would have burned 2 of my 3 before I even got anywhere.
Nice.
Especially since on the bottom of 2, my rhino blew up. It got shot by a giant guard tank.
They have those.
Yeah, I know. Funny thing is, it exploded because of the way the mission was.
Yeah, because things explode on 5s.
Yep.
And it did 1 extra damage.
Yep. I did my mortal wounds to the things around me. That made one of my other penitent engines explode that was close by it. It blew up. One of my other penitent engines was down to 1 wound. So with a deadly demise 1/2, it went away, but it did not explode finally. So I finally stopped the chain explosions.
We didn't have any chain explosions, but my Demon Prince, the Mauler Fiend, Angron, and the Lord of Skulls all exploded. 2 of his knights exploded. The Hammerhead exploded, and he popped a strat to explode his crisis suits when we finally killed them. There was a lot of explosions.
So I will jump ahead then back. Top of 5, the Orc Knobs, Mega Knobs, destroyed by other penitent engine in melee, and it exploded, doing the mortal wounds. Mm-hmm. And one of those hit the tank that hit me ahead of time, so I finally got my air quote retribution of here, have a mortal.
The Emperor's Justice.
Yeah, sort of, except it was like a scratch to it, because,
Look, it doesn't have to be equal, it just has to...
I mean, that's fair.
Retribution occurred. It didn't matter, but retribution did occur. The blood debt has been sated.
Yeah. So my plans were, I now had a sister squad that had to run. This was not fun. But thankfully, actually what caused all of my stuff to be together is the orc put a teleporting buggy right in front of us. So I had my penitent engines all trying to melee it. Except then it died to tank shock from my rhino. So that's why I was all clustered, because it had gone away and then everything went...
Yeah.
But we said, well, let's just keep pressing forward. Morkanot started coming forward, which had the Mega Knobs in it. There was a bunch of Chaos Spawn on a point. Karn was on another point eventually. Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah, you were telling me that Karn was getting work done.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the Blood Angel squads assaulted Karn's squad, wiped them all except for Karn. Karn then proceeded to kill all but one of them.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah,
because Karn hits everything on a 2+.
Yeah.
Regardless of, modifiers. Just 2 up always. And then 1s is he hurts his unit, but if the unit's not there, doesn't matter.
And then jumping ahead, those 2 survived another turn, and then the next fight phase, the Blood Angel killed Karn finally, and then Karn fights Undeath and killed the Blood Angel, so they got their Karmic Strike.
Nice.
So that was cool. But eventually, we had one of the Space Marines. He broke through our 9-inch bubble of defense because he could drop down within 6 inches.
Yep.
So we're like, and then we turned some guys around, and the Iron Warrior was dealing with all this.
That's interesting, actually, now that I think about it. I wonder how that would work, because, the Navigator had a bubble of 12
Navigators
inches.
is you can't go here, which is different than the normal rule.
Okay.
Navigators...
Because I was like, I wonder how that would work with, they have a 12-inch, but you can get within 6. Okay, so I guess that would probably work. Okay.
Yep.
I couldn't remember exactly how it was worded.
By us then moving things back to deal with this, we had more holes, and Scions started dropping down from the guard, and oh my gosh, they put out a lot of shots.
They do.
I watched them just... Well, they only killed 2 Havocs and 3 Space Marines, and then they pretty much got shot almost totally off the board. But
yeah. I have the new Scion drop troops, but I haven't built them yet, so I don't know exactly.
Well, this was a giant, I think, squad of 20 that just came down, and that's why it had so many.
And Scions can take the hotshot las guns and stuff like that, so they actually can take the las guns that can actually hurt Space Marines and heavier things.
I think the Havocs only really survived because they had Tough 5.
Mm-hmm.
But then back on the funner side, Hackathon Land Fortresses, there were 2 from the Votan. So in 1,000 points, he's running 2 of them.
That's crazy. It's too many.
Well, the guard player had 4 giant tanks.
Too many. It's too many.
Yeah. Land Fortress was getting some work done, and we were very happy with it. I was the speed bump for him a lot of times because I'm trying to get up to melee, but I'm not super fast, especially when I'm out of my Rhino. Mm-hmm. And my advances were horrible. I kept on rolling 1s and 2s. It was bad. And I kept on saying, nope, not worthy of my CP, because I want my CP for my 4-up Feel No Pains, or my Advance in Charge, or my 5-up crits.
In our game, it was interesting, because the way, normally everyone generates a CP, but since there were 4 versus 2, they were like, well, why don't you guys generate 2 each?
We've tried that before in our team games, when we had alternate numbers, and the team with fewer people gets a huge advantage.
Yes, because I was able to... I always had the CP to basically be able to interrupt melee. Yeah. And I always had the CP to basically auto-advance 6 when I wanted to, when I felt like I really needed to. Yes, huge advantage.
So we haven't figured out how best to deal with that, because it does... the only big thing is just make all the core stratagems once per use per the team.
Yeah, because the only one that was limited... explicitly was Overwatch. Because we even looked, it was like, does like the reroll or...
But we house ruled on our table only 1 tank shock per turn. Because also there was so many tanks. And then the other one was only 1 grenades per turn. Except if you had the Holy Hand Grenade, because that specifically said...
Was specifically not,
Because, think if you had like 3 people all throwing grenades a unit. That's rough. So that's why on our board we ruled those.
Yeah, that makes sense.
After we finally gotten to like turn 3, we're finally playing the game. So I do actually, like I said before, I like the fact that turn 1 was positioning, turn 2 was your first part of shooting, turn 3 was when we finally got up into melee and started doing stuff. And I like that because it felt like you're actually on a bigger battlefield doing stuff. Because I see so many games that are either... Can I get first turn charges off? Or do I have enough firepower to just obliterate the opponent on the top of 1? Yep. And on a bigger board, those aren't issues.
I didn't know what to do when I couldn't get a turn 1 charge.
And thankfully on our board, there was enough terrain that I was actually doing the Rhino hop here, and that's what he saw 1 Rhino, but he couldn't see the other. That's why he blew up that Rhino. And then I had people just hide behind rocks, hide behind buildings, until I could use my +3 movement blessing, and then did my charges.
Because we did move the terrain, and we kind of built like a big like temple structure in the middle. So like we had a very dense... Basically the limitation was like, okay, we want to make sure it's enough room for Titans
things to get through.
Get through. But it was like, no, we kind of intentionally want to do it dense. And like that was... Yes. That wasn't me advocating for that. That was the shooting army going, hey, let's put a dense thing in the middle. And because they were like, narratively, that makes sense.
Well, and Sure. in the narratives, and when we were setting up terrain, even on some of ours, the opponents said, hey, we're a shooting army. We don't want you to feel this is unfair. Yeah. Let's put some more terrain so we can like block some of ours. Yeah. Because if not, it's a firing gallery and melee loses.
Shooting fish in a barrel. Literally in my case.
Right. But let's see. Back in ours, I know. So we'd finally pushed forward, and here was a key moment for me. I had gotten all of my... Well, actually, the bad moment before the good moment. Trying to charge in with one of my Repentia units. Failed the charge. Tried to bring my empty Rhino into tank shot. Failed the charge. I was like, no! But then, like I said, the following turn, I had +3 movement, which I should have done ahead of time. Instead, I'd done the +1 strength and +1 attack on the charge. And that's the one I failed the charges. Had I had the 3 movement, I could have done it, but I wouldn't have gotten the bonuses. Yeah. It's such a game there.
You got to get there first, but you want to make sure that you get there and you can hit hard when you do. So it's tough.
So then instead, the next turn I had the +3 movement, and that got me to where I was in position. I could make some 2-inch charges. It was great. Except there was the Morkanaut, who they decided that was what they were going to be overwatching with. So they were trying to decide, do you go for this Repentia squad, which was the one with the Miracle Dice?
Is the Morkanaut Titanic?
No.
Okay.
It's just like a...
It's just big. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just... Does it have the Titanic keyword?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Stampa does.
Stampa couldn't Overwatch
Correct.
because it was Titanic.
Correct.
Okay.
Think of this as like an armature.
Yeah, it's way bigger than Armature.
Well, yes.
But okay. I couldn't remember the Titanic.
The other one was going to go for his Mega Knobs. And then the Votan were there, and they had some Hearthguard. So there were 3 decent melee units close by, and truthfully, had he used his Flamers on either one of my 2, they probably would have went away. He instead picked the Hearthguard, and he killed 1.
Yeah, they were very tough for that.
But because of that, I got in my charge. I got to do my Wombo combo. I did 10 mortal wounds to a Morkanaut that only had 6 wounds left. But then my melee into the Mega Knobs did not go so well. I mean, I was wounding on 4s, full rerolls. I got like 10 hits in there. AP -2, 2 damage each. But he only failed 1 save.
Yeah. 2-up armor's no joke.
2-up armor is rough. I mean, I'm used to things that have feel no pain, have invuln saves. I'm like, I'm still doing okay. Just if you have saves that you can make and you make them, it hurts. So eventually that squad stayed in combat with the Mega Knobs, but then some Berserkers came in and mopped them up. On my other side, the other squad, it went and it just got shot up. I think they learned what it can do. And
you only need to learn that lesson once with your pension. It's like, I see what they do. I'm going to shoot them.
And the nice thing is the guy who was playing the orcs, he's wanting to play sisters. So he was asking me a lot of questions of what do I need to do that? And I had to explain, unfortunately, this is one character joining a specific unit in a specific
This
detachment.
is a one-trick pony.
Right.
Yeah. As I was describing World Eaters, I was like, it's a very one-note army. But it's a fun note.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I will admit, I had a ton of fun playing with this, and the key of this was just keeping that Palatine's unit alive just to deliver the big punch.
Having played other armies that are very one-sided, I find that like a one-sided melee army is way more fun than a one-sided shooting army.
I could see that.
Because it's just more interactive.
Yeah.
You know, you're moving, you have to think more about positioning, you have to think more about like target selection. Your opponent, it's back and forth with your opponent. Like it just feels more engaging and more fun. The reason why I stopped playing Tau in 7th edition is they became a static gunline army, and I just didn't like playing that way. I liked playing them when you had the jump shoot move and you had like this dynamic interaction with stuff. Yeah. And it's like when they were just stand fire with fire warriors and just rank up and just dump shots into them. It's like, that's not a lot of fun. Which I'm saying is knowing that my next army I'm working on is like a Death Corps of Krieg army, so it'll be the same thing. But
what about Votan?
It'll be somehow different. And that's also in the works somewhere.
Votan's different.
It's in the works somewhere.
It's a mix.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's mid-range. I will say Carl, the World Eaters player, him and I just kind of sat down on the side a lot. We just chit-chatted because we're the 2 melee guys. I mean, we'll just do here.
It worked out pretty well because Kenny's Knights had a lot of shooting. And like they did some melee, but like they kind of like set back and like mopped up like a lot of melee. So a lot of the games it was like, okay, my shooting phase, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go do this and look over here, and then okay, it's melee, I'll do this, and he's off, so it worked out well.
Yeah, so in the end, so I'll say my Ephemeral Stern, they decided instead of moving tanks back, they deep struck one of their Inceptor units back there with the plasma pistols, and they took shots. I was making saves, so I stayed around until the final turn. I made my saves again on 5, so then he finally charged me, and she finally fell in melee.
Dang.
On the bottom of 5. But he also was making his battle shocks, so he wasn't taking the mortal wounds from her little ability. So,
nice.
Good for them, because in the end, our team only had 5 Repentia, mine left on a point in the back, and then a few Iron Warriors units, while our opponents had 4 Imperial Guard tanks, and then a few other things, but mostly the Imperial Guard tanks were left.
At the end of our game, we had 2 armigers in the back. The knight with all of the guns was still up. And I believe there was another armiger in force. So I think it was 3 armigers and 1 knight left. And they had a full squad of Pathfinders, the full Inquisitorial agents, the assassin, the 2 navigators, like, still had a lot of stuff, but they didn't have any. I mean, we got to the end of the 5 anyway, but they didn't have anything that would have been able to reliably hurt the big things that were left.
Yeah.
So even though it would have taken several turns to, like, mop up, we had gotten to the point where basically it was mop up.
On ours, it would have been we did finish all 5 turns, but had it gone past that, it was Imperial Guard trying to mop things up then.
Yeah.
But in the end,
Yeah, so what was the final?
92 for us, 89 for them.
That's crazy.
Which we were told this was like the highest score in the thing. So my 13 to, or I guess technically with paint stores, 26 to 23 was probably the lowest.
Yeah.
And
probably.
this 92, 89 was we were told from the organizers, the highest.
So the question that I almost asked earlier was, do we remember which faction won? Because I heard them announce it, but I didn't hear what he said.
I believe it was Stalwarts.
That makes sense, because I think weren't they the ones that have like 3 of the planets?
No, Raiders had 3.
Oh.
Stalwarts had 2, but Stalwarts, from what we gathered, had a lot of wins today.
Okay, cool.
So we'll bring back a Saint. How's that sound?
Makes sense.
Okay.
So we won our game, so like you have to pick like a narrative thing, and I have to write up the narrative to post in Discord. But at least in my case, I looted them corpses to replenish the ranks of my World Leaders army, because there were a bunch of captured Tau. So they're joining chaos whether they want to or not.
Fair. And I mean, I say that that's what I'd heard, but I didn't hear it from the organizer. So he'll probably post.
Yeah.
Or maybe he'll wait till the other things come in and post just results.
True. Yeah.
And a normal, like, not knowing who won as much of, here's the changes that happened.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the nice thing is, in this final event, you get to kind of pick a thing and, you know, an effect, and some of those will carry over to next year.
Yeah.
One thing that I did want to mention real quick as well, since you mentioned deployment earlier, and I'm like, oh, that reminded me. We did meet John from Sell It Hobbies on Etsy, who sold these 3D printed range tokens, deployment markers, the little like combat gauges. Really cool stuff. He's from St. Louis, so semi-local to us.
Well, he grew up in Kansas City, too.
Grew up in Kansas City.
So, very local-ish.
We're hopeful that we're going to try to see if he can come make it to Midwest Conquest. So if you're coming to Midwest Conquest, hopefully we'll have some vendors there to sell some cool stuff. So I bought a set of the deployment markers and the rangefinders. So.
I will say he had something there I didn't recognize, which was those big, weird UT things.
I think that's something for Sigmar?
No.
What was that?
Because we weren't his, but there were some used in our game. That's a 9-inch, here's your deep strike area.
Oh.
You put it down and it gives you here's from a person, and that little round edge at the top, the rounded top of the T,
Good
is...
to know.
Yeah, and the guy on our side had, like, a lot of them.
Good
so
to know.
he could put down 3 or 4 so you see... Because we always put down dice.
Yeah.
This is so much faster. So now that I know what that is, I kind of want some.
I know, yeah. Like I said...
And he had some on his site, too.
Yeah, he has them. So check them out. We'll put a link in the bio. Yeah, overall, what was your opinion?
I would say from the narrative, I enjoyed days 1 and 2, but day 3 was a blast.
Now you fully know why I was like, for Midwest Conquest, I was pushing for the larger game on day 2.
Right.
Because, like, it's just, it's a way to play larger, epic feeling games without having to futz with, like, the APOC rules.
Right. And I know when we did that at Midwest, I tried to be there to help speed the game along. You didn't have that type of thing here, but I think a lot of the games stayed flowing enough.
I think your guys' game was the last one, or one of the last ones.
I think so.
Yeah, like we were done. I mean, granted, melee army and stuff like that. We were done an hour and a half early.
For us,
yeah,
it was the shooting that took a long time.
Yeah,
melee got done like that.
Yeah,
but the shooting, especially between a Votann that was very shooty and the Imperial Guard that was very shooty.
Yeah.
With lots of shots.
Because basically, like in ours, the night shooting was pretty fast. You know, there were a lot of shooting, but it went relatively fast because of just the few number of units.
Right.
I had no shooting. The Gene Stealer Colts didn't really have any shooting. Imperial Agents didn't really have any shooting, and we focused a lot of our fighting and melee efforts at the Tau. So as we got later in the game, there was not a lot of Tau shooting either. So our game went pretty fast because we got to turn 3 before launch.
Yeah. Well, Ours, we broke at 20 till lunchtime to go have lunch. So we had a slightly early lunch, and we're at the mid 3. So we'd done top of 3. We're coming back to do bottom of 3. Yeah. It was turns 3 and 4 that when the shooting finally got caught up there that slowed it down.
Because like for us, after 3 it went really fast because all of the big shooting stuff was already gone.
And for us, 1 and 2 were pretty fast because it's mostly for us movement. Yeah. Because a lot of the like Votann are short range. Mm-hmm. The guard, I mean, the Vanquisher cannon and the other some things
mid-range.
We're all mid-range stuff. So they had to get up in there. Yeah. But no, all in all, it was a blast. I think I would like to come back. I just don't know based on schedules and timing if it will be next year.
Yeah, it's always hard to commit to like flying to an event. So I get it. It's an easy yes for me because it's a drive.
Right.
Yours
is just
I can just drive. I can come up. It's
So the hardest one within driving distance.
Yeah. The hardest part for me will be getting, because this is right around our pay planning every year. So it's like getting approval to come from work, but we'll make it work. This year it got lucky because it's the holiday weekend. So
yes. Well, that's how you talked me into coming.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think that's all we have today. Next episode, since Eldar went up for pre-order, we'll have a review of that. We'll see you guys, I guess, in a couple weeks. For Preferred Enemies, I'm Kevin.
Dennis.
And that's our wrap from LVO.